Number of things happening in the city just the other day when there were protests that took place, and folks were up in arms, of course, and we're saying, what's happening here? Because the presence of hooliganism was quite clear, and what we are not sure is that how did those lines cross over between what would have been a peaceful protest, then police intervention, and then clear hooliganism that took over the situation. So joining us in the conversation this morning, two gentlemen. Dr. Raymond Nyeris is the Vice Chairperson of the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, and he's here in the hot seat this morning. Good morning, Dr. Nyeris.
Good morning.
Karibu sana, how are you doing?
Doing very well.
Karibu, thank you.
Asante sana.
For being here. We'll soon be joined by Francis Gashanja, who is the Secretary General of the Nairobi Hawkers Association. We did see quite a lot of individuals who were caught up in the melee of these protests, and quite a number of them injured, and one of them in hospital today in critical condition on a mechanical ventilator, and the doctors, as doing the best they could, are not sure what will happen, but he's under strict and round the clock observation to see then what will happen with him. And these are all results of the events that we saw on Tuesday. We're going to get into the conversation, and we ask about business safety and this hooliganism that we see during protests, what way forward. So we'll be discussing that today. But before Francis gets here, Dennis is going to share today's proverb from Rwanda. We'd like to get your interpretation of it.
And in Rwanda, there is one dance that stands out, the Intore dance, that is predominantly known with the Rwandese population, where they just dance as though they're contortionists and whatnot. But that aside as well, they have the Kwita Inzina, which is the ceremony for naming the gorillas in the country. It's a big thing. It is one of the greatest tourism attractions in Rwanda. And the proverb that today comes from Rwanda is, the road does not tell the traveler anything. The road does not tell the traveler anything. What would you make of that?
Thank you so much. First, I want to really appreciate you for giving me this opportunity to appear before this station. And on behalf of the Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights, for your information, it is Kenyan National Commission on Human Rights.
On Human Rights.
Yes, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. That is something that is new. You said the road does not do what?
Tell the traveler anything.
In my view, I will say the road will tell the traveler where it's going. Because you cannot travel on a road that you do not know. It must be leading you to somewhere where you're supposed to go to. So in my interpretation, I will say the road will lead you to where you are supposed to go to.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
The road will lead you where you're supposed to go. And we'll see that taking place. So we know that Francis Gashanja is running late. He'll join us soon. But, we start this conversation, and just an overview. Unfortunately, we've heard some disturbing things, and what would be allegations that there was a planned attack to have, or rather there was a planned scenario whereby we would have goons, hooligans, whatever it is that you want to call them, come into the protest, work alongside police to disrupt the very character of the protest. And then what we then saw was looting, we saw burning, we saw destruction, we saw beating, we saw all kinds of things that resulted in one case, actually in a number of cases, but one that is now catching public attention, whereby a gentleman is fighting for his life. We saw that happen at the hands of police. We saw all kinds of things go on at the same place. And then we're starting to wonder that what is the connection between these goons and this business, and who hires them, and what does this matrix look like? When we're coming from a rights perspective, who protects business owners in the city, because they are audience to this in a lot of cases, or they have to shut down their shops, they have to shut down their businesses when this chaos happens. And the chaos comes about as a result of other parties entering into a process. So who protects their rights as we start into this conversation?
Thank you so much. I want to say that the activities of the last few days, it has alarmed us as a commission. We are perturbed. The trajectory that our country is taking on matters human rights is really disturbing. As a commission, we've witnessed this. When the demonstration was taking place, we were on the ground with our team, and what we witnessed, the incursion, the infiltration of the goons, made everything. It caused a lot of disaster to the peaceful demonstrators who are exercising their constitutional right. Let's remember that the exercising of our rights, especially Article 37, is provided for in our Constitution. And we have that inherent right as Kenyans to demonstrate, to assemble, to picket. But when goons, when hooligans are allowed and escorted by the police, like what we witnessed on Tuesday, then we get to wonder what's happening to our country. We witnessed that, and for the record, we were able to capture 22 injuries, of course, including the one who is in hospital at the moment. And we were surprised.
What type of injuries, sorry?
Of course, some of them, they were beaten. The goons were having
Clubs.
They were riding on motorbikes, being escorted by the police officers who are supposed to, ideally, to protect the business people. So some of them were beaten. They were clobbered by these goons, hooligans who were paid. And you've seen even what the county government has said, trying to distance themselves from that. But what we saw, and Kenyans also saw that, they were even using motorbikes. So we were alarmed to see that. But as you said, the police have a duty. They are duty bound to ensure the protections of Kenyans, those who are doing their businesses. Now, we were able to capture, in our streets, there are around 4 people. We have the police who are duty bound and legally expected to protect Kenyans. Then we have the peaceful and armed protesters who are supposed to exercise their rights. And then here we have the business community who are also exercising their right of doing their business. But now there is the 4th person, this illegal person, the hooligan, the goon. And that's the person whom we don't want to see in our streets.
Nyeris, when the demonstrations were happening in the CBD and you could see the hooligans with their clubs and whips being escorted by the police, how did that settle with the commission with regard to the protection of the right to picket, protection of the right to do business in the country, and the right as well to just maintain law and order as police should have maintained that? How did that settle down with the commission?
We were alarmed, just like all Kenyans, and the same evening we issued our statement condemning the hooligans who were destroying property, those who were stealing property, those who caused disruption, because they were not supposed to be there. We expected the peaceful demonstrators. We expected the police to be with them, but we never expected that they will be paid hooligans to disrupt the operations within our city. So the commission was alarmed to see that, and in the same day we were able to issue our statement condemning that. And we will expect the national police to carry out investigation by identifying those goons, so that these business people, they can seek redress
Dr. Raymond,
Yes.
Just a quick one.
Yes.
In terms of just looking at data,
Yes.
The Tuesday events,
Yes.
you talked about 22 injuries.
Yes.
Just break it down for us in terms of the numbers that you are receiving. You talked about the type of injuries, the clobbering and all that. We've had this argument of there was use of rubber bullets and there was use of live bullets. So the argument here is to qualify that it was not as horrific as people put it. Police are using rubber bullets. Did you find any evidence that this was the case?
The only case we were able to identify where there was the use of bullet is for the victim who is in hospital at the moment.
And was it a rubber bullet?
No, not at all. That must have been that must have been shot. That person must have been shot by the police who was there. Because if there was rubber bullet, that could not cause the kind of injury that person is suffering at the moment.
Yes.
Yes. So, but the rest, those who are clobbered using whatever they were carrying, we can say they were those who were beaten by the goons, the hooligans who were, can say, hired. But the only person we can say he was shot is the person who is in Kenyatta National Hospital now, fighting for his life. Yes.
Is it enough to issue statements? Because I think at this point whereby there's so many statements that are issued time and time again, and it just becomes a thing where even those who hear it are just saying, well, okay, well, it's another statement that's been made. Okay, they've made the statement. Let's keep it moving on to the next thing. Is the issuance of statements sufficient in this day and age?
Okay, issuing a statement, in essence, is meant to inform Kenyans of what has happened. So, not many people are aware of what has happened. And as a commission, we are duty bound to inform Kenyans that these are the happenings of today. And we call upon those who have the responsibility to ensure the protection of Kenyans to take the immediate action that is expected of them so that that scenario can be addressed. For instance, we're able to call upon the police to do investigation so that the culprits can be identified and brought to book.
Okay.
So issuing a statement is better than being silent. Because if you just keep quiet, how will Kenyans know?
Dr.
Yes.
There is the issue of issuing a statement and there is the issue of following up on investigations that are being taken. You talk of asking the police to conduct investigations in finding out those who committed the atrocities against Kenya and even to business. But then again, if you just go a little bit back, you find that it is the police themselves who are accompanying the goons. So how do police investigate?
Now, there are two, we call upon two institutions to carry out investigations. One, IPOA, for the case of the police who shot that innocent and armed Kenyan. So, and the IPOA swung to action, and we've seen what has happened. Already the two officers have been interdicted. We also call upon the police to carry out investigation for those who are responsible for the looting. Because these are civilians, these are hooligans. So that is the responsibility of the police to ensure that those who carried out the hooliganism are identified. But for the IPOA, they deal with the police to identify those who are responsible. And they have done that.
Okay.
Yes.
Francis Gashanja joins us now as the Secretary General of the Nairobi Hawkers Association. Francis, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Very well.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
We're glad that you made it.
My apologies for being late.
Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Obviously, Tuesday was a crazy day in the middle of the city, and people are still, trying to come back from the shock that all of it created and from the disruption that it created. The issue that we want to look into directly and just getting you right into it as you come into this is what we've been talking about just before you came. And we ask ourselves the question, for people who own businesses, for people who run businesses, hawkers throughout the city, because they're all over the city, what happened on Tuesday and what did you see that then became very clear at some point that there's a problem here and it's not just protesters? Were you in the city? What happened?
Yes, on Tuesday I was in the city, and it all started well like any other normal days, but there was some tensions because of the demonstration that was to come. And then the small groups started gathering up. of the real protesters. And then at around 11, there are some other guys who came, who started streaming in the streets of Nairobi, carrying batons. Yeah, and they were somewhere with boda motorbikes, and they were chanting some slogans there. And they were ready to attack any protester, any real protester that was there.
What were they saying?
Okay, they were saying that there shall be no maandamano. Hakuna maandamano leo. Yes. Hakuna maandamano, hakuna maandamano. Those were the slogans that they were chanting. Yeah, at first. At
first, and they were just chanting slogans, and they were just walking in the street?
They were not just walking.
What was happening?
If they came across a small group of protesters, those Gen Z or those younger guys, they were beating them up and chasing them away with those batons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did anybody get the idea that they were not acting on their own, but that they were sent by someone?
At first, we did not get that idea, but later it became clear because we saw that even the policemen were not. They were not even chasing them away. It's like they were walking side by side. Yes. Even there was at a point that policemen were giving them tear gas canisters.
I explain. Giving them tear gas canisters for what?
I don't know, because you can just see these are hooligans, and they are being given tear gas canister by uniformed police officers. You
and
just wonder where they shall take them.
And what did they do with them, or you just saw them being given and thereafter?
I just saw them being given. And I think we had a video for that. Them being given a tear gas canister, but later on, it was mayhem in town. Yeah, the whole day, people were robbed, people were beaten up, and businesses were robbed. They were breaking to every breakable door. Yeah.
As a member of the business community in Nairobi, your role and your right to equally just do business, like the case of one Kariuki who is in hospital right now, it's his right to do business in the CBD. And when such protests do happen and there is the violence that you see, police working together with hooligans, and there is lawlessness, what exactly does that do to your members and business owners in the CBD?
Yeah, in the case of like that one you have just mentioned of Boniface. Boniface is one of our member. His father is one of our member, and I was there yesterday. We wish him quick recovery, although he's in critical condition. I had an opportunity to enter that ICU at around 6 last evening, and he's been supported by machine. It's so unfortunate that Boniface is a hawker who usually fed his goods allowed Mr. Price and Tomboya Street, commercial. But on that fateful day, he was just, because he could not be able to sell the obvious thing that he usually do, the beauty products, that is when he took those face masks and started selling them, because to get the bread of the day. And it is so unfortunate that you could see that even those hooligans who are beating up even hawkers, they were beating up everyone that they were coming across. Then to see that a police officer laughing up those hawkers, it is not only Boniface. Many hawkers were beaten up that day. But for Boniface, it was I can just say it's a very unfortunate, because it was captured in camera, yes, and it is a case that went beyond, because it involved a bullet.
Francis,
yes.
Just to back up a bit on the story of Boniface, we have several video footage giving us different angles of what happened to Boniface. So there was an online conversation I saw where people are saying he must have said something to these police officers to provoke the police officers to turn. Because at one point, we see the officers, he was standing, backed up against the wall. He's watching everything going on around him. We don't see him running away. So by the time they're cutting the corner to where he was standing, then the officer is pointing a gun. Then there was another officer again who was trying to aim, but you could almost see he didn't have a clear shot. Then they now come to rough him up. From what you've gathered, the information you've gathered, what exactly happened at that point?
He didn't say anything. Earlier on, I had met Boniface at a loud audience area because he was going aloud selling those masks. He did not say anything. You see, even police officers provoke people to talk or to speak, but he did not say anything. If you look at, I also have those videos from different angles, and the yellow footage. So you cannot, they are not edited. There is nothing that Boniface said that could have provoked those officers. Not even could have provoked the officers. There is nothing that he said. In fact, if you see when he is being laughed up, he's covering his head like he is shielding his head with his hands, with his one hand, the other one holding the
face masks.
The face mask. So he did not say anything.
At the moment, the lawyers of the two officers who reported to Capitol Hill yesterday are arguing and saying they didn't use live ammunition. They were rubber bullets. From what you've gathered and from what you saw in the hospital in the ICU last evening, was it a rubber bullet or was it a live bullet?
I don't know whether a rubber bullet can be able to penetrate through the skull to the brain, because even from the doctor's report, the doctor said that the brain, there is severe damage to the brain. And I think we also had a brief with the doctor who was there, and he told us that the brain has been damaged severely.
I mean, Daktari, when you hear such cases that we're now talking about, Boniface Mwangi, who's now on the spot, whether he said something to the police officers or not, question number one, did he deserve being shot in the head the way he was? On a normal day, one would expect that a police officer would arrest you, take you to a police station, book you in, and take you to court. But when we see that police are easy at pulling the trigger, what message does that send to the Mwananchi in terms of, I trust and I believe that the police would come to the streets and protect my business? The police will come and protect me as a protester against hooligans, as opposed to being afraid that the police will come to the streets, protect the hooligans, and at any given point, if I'm just standing at a corner, they will shoot me.
I agree with you, and let me at this juncture, on behalf of the Commission, also send our quick recovery goodwill to Boniface Kariuki. As you've said, whatever he said, whether he provoked the police officer, nothing justifies or can warrant the shooting of any human being. Whether you provoke a police officer or not. And this is almost the same case that happened with the late Albert Ojwang. Because we are told that he said something which was not good against one of the senior officers, and now we do not have him.
Yeah.
So instead of just arresting that person and taking him to court, our police officers are not behaving professionally.
Indeed.
And that is the expectation. Article 244 expects the police to act professionally. But the way they are acting, the way they have managed the situation at the moment, the way they dealt with the late Albert Skate and now Boniface Kariuki, that is diminishing the level of trust between the national police or the police officers and ordinary Mwananchi. Nothing whatsoever can justify the pulling of a trigger against any civilian. The best approach will always be arresting and taking them to to
court.
Yes.
We'll come back and we'll look at the who behind, but let's answer that question about what rubber bullets can actually do. And because the justification has been that, oh, well, it was just rubber bullets, so that should not have been a problem. Well, rubber bullets can cause significant damage, especially when fired at close range, which what we saw happened in that video. While often referred to as less lethal, they're not harmless and can cause serious injuries, including fatalities, depending on the distance and the area of impact. Close range danger: when fired at close range, again, like we saw, rubber bullets can penetrate the skin, break bones, including the skull, and cause severe tissue damage. Injuries can include skull fractures, brain injury, eye injury, potentially leading to blindness and damage to internal organs. So the less lethal misconception is that they are termed less lethal, and this is misleading. While they may not be designed to kill, they are not harmless and can cause serious permanent injuries, especially when used improperly at a close range. So that justification is essentially thrown out the window. And we see certain things happening, and for me, there's no justification here. It shouldn't be. What did he say? There's nothing that you could open your mouth and say that would require that a bullet be put in your head, and then so we start to ask the questions about then what happened, because there have been many things said, whether it is conjecture, whether it is allegations, whether it's somebody just spinning a narrative in their head that the goons were walking alongside police. You've said this to us, Francis, and that at some point they did gather around City Hall and pay homage, essentially, to whom they said was the kingpin. And it is my language that they used in some cases to say Igwe. They said this outside of the City Hall. What does this mean? And does it mean, Francis, from your understanding, that there was somebody high up who paid for these goons to come into the city?
Well, I think there must be someone who paid for the goons, but it does not necessarily mean that it is whoever that they were mentioning when they were passing City Hall, because I don't think that he can go to that far. But yeah, they were chanting those those things when they were passing there, but we cannot validate and say that it is he is the one who paid for them or who caught them. Yes.
But when you hear statements that are made, I want to tell the youth in Nairobi demonstrating for your rights is allowed, but will not allow the destruction of property again. That will never happen again in Nairobi. Touching vehicles won't bring back our brother Albert Ojwang, so don't try it. You'll find me in town. Then you have other statements that are said. We are not denying that Ojwang died, Mr. Odhiambo said, but was he killed so that vehicles are burned, so that Nairobi is destroyed? Governor Sakaja, form a youth group and pair them with police so that anyone trying to cause chaos is dealt with accordingly. These are statements that were made by leaders. Governor Sakaja made his statement. We find MCAs in Nairobi making these statements. And you find on the very same day when protests are happening, form a youth group and pair them with police. We see youth groups paired with police with batons to deal with protesters. When such statements are made, Daktari, and we have such confrontation that is glaring before the eyes of Kenyans, one would hope that we move into protecting and preventing such acts from happening early. That would call for early investigations, perhaps the individuals making these statements be called in to substantiate what it is they mean by their statements. But we do not see that take place from the police, be it with the NCIC. Why is it that there is seemingly we are more to react than to prevent?
Thank you so much. As for me, looking at the manner in which the hooligans organized, they were using motorbikes, and not one, not two, but more, in terms of more than 20. Now, you can easily conclude that there must be someone behind who maybe fuel these motorbikes, and that's why they were freely moving around. And as he has said, they were chanting no mandamanos, no mandamanos, with a lot of boldness. So the question of why, the level of trust, the police who are supposed to provide security, to maintain law and order, are the ones who are bystanders. They are just working with these people. So, and you expect them now to carry out the investigation on these hooligans. Kenyans do not trust them.
Dr. What would be the ideal position when you see we have another group of protesters with batons? What would you expect to see the police do?
I would expect the police to ensure there is order in the city. In the first place, when they ensure that there was this demonstration, because the first batch of the demonstrators were peaceful, and those were the people who are exercising their rights. But now come these hooligans, and everything runs into disarray. So we expected the police, from the word go, to stand with the peaceful demonstrators to ensure that everything is done in order. But now they were escorting these people. We saw them.
Yeah, there's an element of literature. It's called imagery.
Yes.
And that usually you see something and it stands for something else, that you can see it very clearly, and that you can tell yourself that, okay, the author may not come out directly and say the dog was walking down the road, but that they will paint a picture for you to imagine that the dog was walking down the road. Now, Francis said very clearly to us that they saw at some point, goons and police officers were walking side by side, 2 by 2, like the animals walking into Noah's Ark. They saw this happening. And so for me, that imagery is very clear, whereby you would expect, like you said, Dr. Raymond, you expect that the police would have called this out and then institute law and order. But the imagery is very clear if we look at that picture. If the goons and the police were walking side by side, how can we expect police then to institute law and order if they've already shown you the image of where the position that they have is? They've shown you, you've seen it, you've seen who they're walking with. How do we then put the responsibility back on their shoulders and say, well, actually, you know what? We expect you to actually come and institute law and order in this mess. But we don't see that. What we do see is a man who's in hospital with a bullet in his head. How can we expect that when the picture is showing? And this is the thing, I think, from our comments here, we see Atticus. I'm going to call you out. Just going to go with what Atticus is saying, that we are shown. We don't need to look very far. We are shown the picture. If it's worth 1,000 words, we are shown the pictures over and over and over again. And yet, we still sit and we say we expect the police to institute law and order, but we see them walking with chaos and disorder. How do we expect the same people who paint a picture in one case to act differently in another case? And we still sit here and expect. My question going to, should we not be doing a little bit more now than expecting?
Yes, we should. The collusion between the police and the hooligans is what is alarming Kenyans. And for us, as Kenyans, we should be calling and expecting that we hold people culpable. Accountability of police officers is key. And this is where Kenyans and all of us must call out on them to ensure that we hold them accountable for their misdeeds. They have abdicated their responsibility. What the law expects of them and what Kenyans expect them to do is what they are not doing. So we will expect that the police are held accountable for failing to discharge their legal mandate of providing law and maintaining law and order in our country.
But I think it gets us to the point whereby, from a human rights perspective, after years and years and years of this kind of... the protests did not start in June 2025.
Yes.
Protests have been happening where people have been killed. We have seen these. So, and for me, and I think that's the place where we're saying the expectation of the hope of expectation has been dashed against the rocks too many times. And we can say unequivocally that the businesses that were destroyed, the goons who came and beat people, they will not be brought to book. If today is Thursday, 2 days after this event happened, and nobody's even whispering and saying, who did this, where are they? Do we expect that in the next... Look, for goodness sake, a man died in the cells 12 days ago. And till today, we are still pussyfooting around an issue. Do we expect that somebody is going to stand up and say, until and unless people say, you know what, enough is enough? Do we expect that somebody out of their own volition is going to stand up and say, actually, you know what, I'm going to comb through all the footage in the city on Tuesday and find the people who did this? We can't expect that to happen. And I think we need to face the reality. We look the reality in the face that we're dealing with a much larger and more serious situation than we are often ready to admit.
What we can say from the situation that was there in the streets, Kenyans are on their own. You see, those police officers and the goons, or the so-called goons, those we think that they were paid, or we believe that there was someone who was paying them. Those are the goons who committed the worst atrocities there in town, robbing everyone, from shops, from anything. And the police were, when they are not together, they were standing in a distance. So when they have finished robbing someone or robbing a shop, that is the time when police would arrive.
When it's over.
When it's over. And maybe throw a tear gas canister there. So from where we sit, from where we are, Kenyans are on their own. When there is demonstration, or maybe they wanted to instill fear to the protesters or to Kenyan, so that when you hear that there is protest going on in CBD or in city, you stay away, because the fear, the things that happened even around commercial area, they were not even, you could not even record, because if you were to just remove your phone and record, it was to be snatched. And so many things were not documented, what happened, but it was not good.
I mean, Francis,
Yes.
I know hawkers in town, and because you represent them as SG, you have a network of how you work in the CBD. This question of hired goons, some of these individuals were hired to disrupt as early as last week. Did you, in your networks, even hear something was being planned? Because the way they say CBD in Ndogo, or did you hear there was a plan to disrupt? Did you hear there was a plan that hired goods were going to infiltrate the protesters? Did you hear anything like that? That's question number one. Question number two, because you've talked about fear, there are many traders, many hawkers who are now scared to operate in the CBD, open their businesses, because earlier on last year, when protests were going on, we would see hawkers actually selling water, selling face masks, and it was okay. But as things stand now, what's the position of as SG on hawkers when now we have protests in town? How has it affected how you do your business?
Okay. For the mobilization of the goons, I can say that it was not mostly done in CBD, because those faces, if they were from CBD, I could have recognized those faces. Those faces came maybe from estates, and I think I had maybe they came from estates, not from CBD.
Some of them were saying, some of those hooligans on camera during interviews were actually saying in Swahili, not in very few words, that they were there to protect the businesses. They didn't want protesters to affect the businesses downtown. So upon your hasolia wiko in town. So that's where they eat every day. And so they were there to make sure that they protect their areas of operation. And you're saying those faces are not familiar to you. They were never faces that you had seen before.
Yeah, that one, in fact, I have seen that guy that you're saying. That one he is not from CBD. I think he was coached to say so. Yeah, there was another question that you have said.
The one about fear and doing business as hawkers now.
Yeah, there is fear that has been, we have been sowed fear, I can say that. But we shall gather ourselves up and continue doing our business. You see, there is this aspect of fear, and there is this other thing. We need to put our bread on table, and we have to, because most people like hawkers, we live from heart to mouth. So whatever we gather from that day is what you use for supper in the evening.
Yeah.
So with the fear or not, we must be in town at all times, and we cannot allow fear to chip in and.
You see, we talk about a country whose, regardless of what is happening, the economy has to move on. Whether there is fear that is being sold, whether demonstrations, the individuals who depend on people like Francis here and Boniface for their life to continue, regardless of what is happening. And one would only hope that the rule of law would be respected. And as we talk about where the concentration of recruitment happened, here is it was concentrated in Congo area, in Dagoretti North, Dagoretti South, and Mathare. And border riders who were approached and given strict orders to carry 2 armed passengers. This is just information that we are now getting. But then again, Daktari, and one would hope that with all these investigations that are taking place, but what is the future in terms of respect for human rights and just the rule of law in the country? Because the Constitution gives everybody the right to do business, the right to picket, the right to be protected. Even the police themselves are protected by the Constitution. With all this happening and seemingly that it is the police who are breaking the law, including Kenyans themselves allowing themselves to be hired to go cause mayhem, then the respect and the rule of law in the country seems to have been thrown out of the window. So how do we regain that back? I would want you to just speak to Kenyans, those who are hired goons, including just the police, on the respect of the rule of law.
Thank you so much. This is what I would say. For the business community, they must not, I want to encourage them to stand strong and ensure that they continue with their businesses. I know the environment under which they are operating may not be conducive at the moment, as Francis said, especially when there are goons who are determined to steal, to destroy their property. Considering also the sacrifices these people have made, the investments they have built, and then within a short time, it's no more. It is very discouraging. But because they have that right of doing business, they must continue. And I want to call upon the police, because the police in our country have a duty of ensuring the protection of these businesses. They must work in hand with the business community, ensure they engage on a daily basis so that they can guarantee the safety of these business operations within the city. And for Kenyans, consider our country is governed by the rule of law, and allowing ourselves to be used by few individuals to cause mayhem is not acceptable at all. And if we accept to do that, then we will be ruining our country. And we have this is the only country we have, and we must ensure we protect so that those who are doing their businesses can enjoy doing their businesses in an environment that is safe and protected. Yeah.
Daktari, quickly, in just less than a minute, beyond documentation, what can your commission do to the families of those that have been affected by police brutality and, in the most recent cases, fatalities?
We can seek redress. We have a department that deals with redress, offering redress, and that's what we can do. For those who have lost their properties, these are people, they can seek redress after identifying, because the loss of property, the owning of property is our right, the right to property. And so when you lose your property, you can seek redress on the same, while the police on the other side can carry out investigation and identify these hooligans, so that if they identify, they can be charged in a court of law. So our commission can offer support, legal, to those who are affected. And we are not starting that. We've been doing that, and we will continue doing that, beside carrying out investigation and then working with other agencies like the National Police Service and even IPOA. Yes.
The next few days are going to be interesting in terms of how things happen, because we know that protests will continue in the city, and I think it's a litmus test for then how serious we are about making sure that, you know, human rights are actually protected, that businesses and the right to do certain things are protected, and that those who are in positions to solidify these are actually doing what they ought to. Gentlemen, thank you for both of you for being here. Francis Gashanga is the Secretary General of the Nairobi Hawkers Association, as well as Dr. Raymond Nyeris, who is the Vice Chair of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Thank you both for being here this morning, and we watch and see and we keep talking. Asante sana.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.